Let's just jump right in. $3.6 trillion. Take a second to really wrap your head around that number. That's the combined target valuation for the upcoming AI IPOs hitting Wall Street by July 2026. We're literally looking at 3.6 trillion. So we're definitely not talking about some niche software boom anymore, right? This is the financial capitalization of a totally new era of human infrastructure. It's a modern-day gold rush, but instead of pickaxes, we're trading in silicon, algorithms, and just raw, unbelievable computing power.
Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely pumped to take you through all these latest updates we've pulled from AI Intelligence Weekly. Today, we're unpacking a massive fundamental shift. It's this total pivot from AI just being a cool software tool to AI becoming critical national infrastructure. We're going to map out exactly how this whole industrialization of AI is playing out across finance, tech, physical hardware, and even government policy.
So, here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, the trillion-dollar AI economy. Second, the agentic AI shift. Third, hardware and the physical limit. Fourth, the cybersecurity arms race. And finally, number 5, government takes the wheel. Let's get into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the trillion-dollar AI economy. AI's Wall Street takeover. Get this. A massive 92% of the watched 2026 public market pipeline is concentrated entirely in AI and the infrastructure around it. Just look at the sheer scale of this formalized IPO framework. OpenAI is targeting roughly a $1 trillion valuation. And to put that into perspective, the context here is just wild. They're generating $25 billion in annualized revenue, but projecting a $14 billion net loss by the end of 2026. Why? Because of crazy aggressive compute spending. Then contrast that with Cerebras Systems, a pure-play AI hardware company. They debuted on the NASDAQ and their order book closed 20 times oversubscribed. I mean, the market is absolutely ravenous for anything that powers these models. And of course, we definitely can't ignore SpaceX sitting there at a $2 trillion target, which is deeply tied to AI through its Colossus supercomputer cluster.
And traditional finance? Well, they're adapting to these numbers incredibly fast. SoftBank is actually seeking a $10 billion loan right now, and they're using their OpenAI stake as collateral. This is a huge signal. It proves that major financial institutions are no longer looking at top AI firms as just risky venture bets. Nope, they're treating them as loan-eligible core assets. The financial bedrock is totally solidifying around these models. Moving right along to Section 2, the agentic AI shift, from chatbots to autonomous workflow engines. This comparison is absolutely vital if we want to understand where things are headed. Conversational AI, the chatbots we've all been using for the last few years, generates text and answers queries. But agentic AI, that is a whole different beast. It executes autonomous workflows. For example, Databricks recently launched Genie 1, which actually integrates directly into enterprise data lakes to just autonomously execute tasks. Or take Google releasing Gemini 3.5 Flash. This thing allows agents to navigate your desktop, your mobile device, and your web browser. They aren't just talking to you anymore, they're actually doing the work for you. It's a real game changer. So the really crucial thing to note here is the sheer speed of these frontier model advancements. OpenAI just announced a limited preview of their GPT 5.6 family. That includes their flagship Soul model, which, by the way, recently scored a massive 91.9% on the super rigorous terminal bench for autonomous agents. Then you've got DeepSeek V4 Pro. This thing is an absolute behemoth with 1.6 trillion parameters, which are essentially the artificial synapses making up its brain. But it smartly only activates 49 billion of them per inference just to keep the compute costs down. And then, on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, Google's Gemma 4 lets highly advanced long-horizon agents run completely locally on a standard laptop with just 16 gigs of RAM. The capabilities are just exploding in literally every direction. All right, Section 3, hardware and the physical limit. AI meets the real world. Now, you can't exactly code your way out of a power grid shortage, right? The industry actually coined a pretty dramatic term for this harsh reality, Ramageddon. It refers to these acute memory shortages that are actively threatening large-scale AI training and inference. As data centers keep expanding to handle all these massive models, they're stressing traditional 48-volt architectures to their absolute breaking points. The heat is so intense now that NVIDIA is actually being forced to push 45-degree closed-loop liquid cooling architectures, literally just to keep these new AI factories from melting down.
And just to give you a real sense of the capital required to overcome these physical limits, South Korean tech giants just committed over $550 billion solely to scale up memory production and fight off these acute RAM shortages. That's more than $500 billion just to make sure the AI industry doesn't literally run out of memory. This brings us to Section 4, the cybersecurity arms race, when agents become attack vectors. The Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance is officially warning that these models are going to exceed our current cyber defenses on a timeline of months, not years. The core of that threat? It's the zero-click vulnerability. Critical flaws with a CVSS 9.8 rating, which is basically a maximum severity threat score, were found in agentic coding environments like Cursor. Because these AI agents have the autonomy to actually execute commands, an attacker can use a prompt injection to run arbitrary code on a developer's machine without the developer ever clicking a single malicious link. The agent is basically tricked into doing the hacking. It is a completely terrifying new attack vector. But it's a double-edged sword, and the good guys are using AI too. OpenAI's Daybreak initiative is currently patching open-source infrastructure at literal machine speed. They generated verified patches for 24 different Linux kernel exploits. And amazingly, they discovered and patched Squidbleed, which was this critical flaw that went completely undetected in production code for 29 years. That's almost 3 decades. Meanwhile, Anthropic has released Mythos 5. This is a model totally stripped of safety guardrails specifically designed for deep cybersecurity research. But they are tightly restricting it to approved U.S. infrastructure defenders under a program called Project Glasswing. And finally, Section 5, Government takes the wheel, the era of pre-release evaluation. AI has officially grown up. It's now being treated with the same gravity as aerospace technology or nuclear infrastructure. The U.S. government is now stepping in and directly influencing model release schedules. We've essentially entered the era of pre-release evaluations. These frontier AI models, they are no longer just consumer software products. They are actively considered export-controlled assets that intersect directly with national security. Let's look at this timeline real quick, because it caused some serious structural whiplash across the industry. On June 12th, the U.S. Commerce Department temporarily suspended Anthropic's new Fable 5 model globally after a jailbreak was discovered that was generating software vulnerability reports. A total global freeze. It wasn't until June 30th, after intense negotiations and the really rapid implementation of dynamic safety classifiers, that the ban was finally lifted. I mean, this kind of intervention in a software release cycle is completely unprecedented. And Congress is actually moving to codify all this oversight. The Great American AI Act, which is this massive 269-page bipartisan discussion draft, is pushing to preempt state laws with one comprehensive federal framework. We're talking about penalties of up to $1 million per day for non-compliant frontier developers, and $100 million a year to fund the new Center for AI Standards and Innovation. Parallel to all this, we're seeing some incredible geopolitical maneuvering. Reports indicate that OpenAI's Sam Altman even pitched the White House on taking a 5% stake in frontier AI labs, basically to align national security with private development. Which brings us right to the core of everything we've looked at today, from the $3.6 trillion in IKEA valuations to agents taking over our workflows, those massive Ramageddon physical bottlenecks, and the government stepping in to freeze software releases. It all leads us to the single, highly provocative question. As AI cements itself as the critical infrastructure of the 21st century, who really controls the compute? I'll leave you to think about that as you process today's explainer. Thank you so much for learning with me, and keep your eyes on the frontier.